Confusion. That is Donald Trump's biggest asset. Confusion. The more confusion in the mix, the more you distrust people, the better he looks. And, you know, the latest it's not his tax return. It's 2 pages of his tax return that has been leaked, exposed. And again, the White House has released this ahead of the story along with a statement. So they're trying to get ahead of this while Trump's tweeting whatever the heck he tweets. There never is any explanation. And let's remind everybody here, Trump's the boss. He's the leader of the free world. He has access to all of this confusion. He has access to all the answers to the questions he's asking. But he's not interested in finding answers. He's interested in creating more confusion, perhaps as a distraction from his own actions. And everyone blames the media. Donald Trump is playing the media like a flute. There is no other person that takes advantage of the media like Donald does. And it's his failure to answer any of the questions that he has all the answers to. He's the head guy. He can ask the FBI, the CIA. He can ask everybody what's going on. He's the boss man. Instead, he paints himself like he's a victim. You can paint yourself as a victim when you're campaigning. Once you're the guy driving the bus, you then can't complain of the direction the bus is heading. You are driving, Donald. You are the man behind the controls. Oh, it's that cop's fault. He stopped my bus. You're the president. You can tell the cop to go to hell. And he makes it sound like everyone else is controlling his affairs or his downfall but him. He's got all the reins. He's driving. And he plays it like he's the victim, like people are attacking him. He's the boss. He's the head honcho. He's the leader. He has access to everything. So why is he creating confusion? You know, he complains about somebody going to the extent of reporting 2 pages of his tax return. Well, the White House confirmed the story. So when the White House confirms the story about your tax return, the press has to jump on it. That's their job. And once again, it's every time the Donald shoots himself in the foot, the press will be there to monitor it. The press will be there to tell you where the bullet went into the foot, where it came out, and how much blood's on the floor. That's what the job of the media is. So if Donald doesn't want the media to report on this, then stop shooting yourself in the foot. The ambulance won't come if there isn't an emergency. So stop creating them. And as our last guest said, it's a president who cries wolf. And sooner or later, people are going to just not believe the guy anymore, if they haven't already. It's amazing. His whole strategy is nothing but confusion. And he's the man with all the answers. Before he could blame Hillary, he could blame Barack, he could even blame his own Republican Party. But now he's one of them. And not only that, he's the leader. He's the leader of all these people. Let's bring in Elliot Tepper, Emeritus Professor of Political Science, Carleton University. He is with us now. Hello, Elliot. How are you today?
I'm fine, Scott. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
In full flow.
What do you think of all of this, Elliot?
Oh, so many different angles to it. First of all, let's start at the top. This is a highly successful president.
Mm-hmm.
To the people who elected him, to the people who want him to be there, he is fulfilling his campaign promises one after the other, including today reinstating, is the word ban still permitted? I think so.
Mm.
And that's a very moderate move. He promised that he would stop all Muslims from entering America, and now it's just down to 6 countries, and they're not being banned because they're Muslim. Let's be clear on that, he says. The courts are going to disagree, perhaps. We'll see. But the point is that what he is doing seems to suit the people that wanted him to be there. And if he's upsetting the FBI, if he's upsetting the media, if he's upsetting you, well, that's okay with the people who elected him.
Does it matter that he's not really doing anything? He's not really accomplishing anything. I mean, he's, again, getting back to the tax return, where did it come from? Why the tweet, then why the White House release? I mean, it's almost a contradiction of term.
Well, there's 2 stories we should talk about probably in addition to the ban. One is the tax release, and the other is James Comey. Your producer suggested we talk about the FBI. But in terms of not getting anything done, we must remind ourselves again, this is not just a Trump presidency. This is the era of the Republican Party ascendancy. So that what we hear is tweets, and what we pay attention to are tweets, and some of the more spectacular things said by the president in his unpredictable and distinctive fashion. But the Republican agenda is moving forward. Mm-hmm. And we can link this to the tax release in a moment. The Republicans are moving ahead with deregulation. The Republicans are moving ahead with deregulation of the environment and as well as Wall Street, so 2 different areas altogether. They're moving ahead with Obamacare, if they can, repeal and replace. They're fighting among themselves about that. So the Republicans have an agenda. Jeff Sessions is the Attorney General. He's already announced he's backing off on the investigation of states which are accused of suppressing votes, voter suppression of minorities. That was vigorously done under the Obama administration, and also police departments that were accused of discrimination. Those things are moving ahead. So there are things happening. It's just that the most spectacular things is what we hear about, and perhaps we should turn our attention to the 2 on the table, the tax release today, and also the FBI apparent testimony today about the Russian leaks.
So let's start with the tax return here. He's saying one thing. The White House has released it. The reporter has released it. Is this all just a distraction from the initial tweet way back a week ago that his wires were being tapped?
I think the word distraction sums up very succinctly a lot of the methodological approach that the president seems to take, along with Steve Bannon and his other advisors, that if you and I are today talking about the taxes, we're not talking about Jeff Sessions and having to recuse himself, or General Flynn having to be fired, or et cetera, et cetera. There are many issues. One I think that should be talked about is where are the jobs? And the job reports that just came out. What's happening to the American economy? What about NATO? What about the fact that there's going to be a summit meeting between China? The leader of China apparently is coming not to the White House but to Mar-a-Lago. These are very important things happening, but we're not talking about them. So every time you and I spend our time talking about, well, this is a 2-page leak, and yes, let's talk about it. A lot of people have. What we're not talking about is more important than what we are talking about.
But again, when people read the stuff about this 2-page leak and such, are they not just coming away with this and saying, what's the point? Where are we going with this? Are they not realizing it's a distraction?
You and I are talking about it. Everyone else is talking about it. So is it a distraction? Well, the whole subject of his taxes have been a legitimate source of the political discourse because every other presidential nominee running for office has released tax reports all along until this one. So I think it's legitimate to talk about taxes. This particular leak, as you know, I'm following the news as you are, there's a lot of gossip in Washington that he himself has released them.
Exactly, because there's nothing negative in there.
Well, it also it's stamped client copy.
Yes.
So it's a hint. We don't know the facts on this. Yes, it makes him look good. He's actually paid taxes. It also strengthens the case that he has been trying to make and others about the alternative minimum tax, because the big news for Trump supporters and for Republicans more generally is that he would have paid almost no taxes at all.
Yeah.
If it had not been for this one particular segment of the tax code, which he is campaigning to have eliminated. And I think if you take a look at the cabinet, I think a lot of people in that cabinet would also like to have that eliminated. So we are maybe having an attack on the tax code here as part of this leak.
Wow. And now I feel like a retriever that's being teased by a series of ducks. I just don't know which one to chomp at.
Yes.
Where will this go? Where will again, the tax thing, I just keep thinking of the phrase, look, something shiny, and everybody's looking over there while something else is going on.
Where this will go, I suspect, is this story will fade because tomorrow we're going to have something else shiny.
Yeah.
But the issue of the taxes are not going to fade because he still has not released, and this will take us to the second story, he still has not released his taxes, as everybody has been asking and everybody has always done before him, because there's concern that, well, maybe he's hiding something, and what he might be hiding is the role of Russian money in his business empire. And that takes us to what the FBI is or is not going to say today. Today we are being told that because Capitol Hill investigators committees have demanded it, the head of the FBI will say something about, well, yes, the president is being investigated, people around the president are being investigated, and, well, there may or may not be something to this charge that the President Obama ordered surveillance, if not tapping, of the Trump campaign. I wouldn't hold my breath on what James Comey is going to release today. He's played a very
Why hasn't he been more vocal, considering what he said prior to the election in regard to Hillary Clinton?
Well, maybe that's why.
But there's no election now.
No, the point is the role of the FBI has been called into question, legitimately, because unambiguously the FBI interfered in the electoral process. Now, it was short term, but it was at a critical time. The FBI director does not want to be accused of being political. Therefore, anything he says after that time will be viewed through the lens of partisanship. Also, Donald Trump has been accusing the FBI, the President of the United States has been accusing the FBI as the source of the leaks which are coming out, which are harmful to him. So that puts the director in a very difficult position, looking after his personal reputation, but also the institutional interest of the FBI. He needs to walk very, very carefully, which is why I suspect we're not going to get a lot today, despite what the buildup has been, out of his testimony.
Will we get more on March 20th?
Who knows?
All right, I can't let you go. What are your thoughts on the next version of the travel ban? Will this one stick? Will that we end up in the same place the first one did?
Well, keep in mind that the travel ban, again, if you're a Trump supporter, this is another example of promises made, promises kept.
Mm-hmm.
He's said he's going to keep America safe. He is targeting particular groups which might be a source of security risk, and therefore the criticism against him is unfair. When it's pointed out that the original 7 and now 6 have not been the sources of particular security threats to America, and that indeed those threats come more domestically than overseas, and that the refugees are so thoroughly vetted, any refugee is so thoroughly vetted before arriving on America's soil that they have not been a primary source, et cetera, et cetera. So this is now going to be in the courts. We'll have to see if the courts, I think there are now 3 states, once again, saying, you say this is better than the first time. We don't think it is. It's still hidden as a way to keep Muslims out. But to stand back from it as we started out, it's really a very moderate delivery on a very heavy campaign promise. He was going to keep out all Muslims.
Good point. Elliot Tepper has been with us, political science professor at Carleton University. Elliot, as always, thanks for the time. Much appreciated.
Always a lot to talk about.
Yes, that is true. Thank you, Elliot. Appreciate it.